How does a rookie quarterback put up a clean stat line, protect the football, throw a touchdown, avoid turnovers, and still walk off the field with only 8 points to show for it? That's the question Cleveland fans were left asking after the Browns were blasted 26-8 at home by a 49ers team that came in banged up and missing key starters. It wasn't just the score that stung, it was the way it happened. This loss didn't expose a flaw in Shedeur Sanders. It exposed the system around him. The 49ers didn't do anything exotic or surprising. They just played smart, mistake-free football and capitalized when the Browns gave them opportunities. Meanwhile, Cleveland kept tripping over its own feet. There were turnovers on special teams, wasted red zone drives, breakdowns in protection, and questionable play calling that slowed the offense to a crawl. What makes that even harder to swallow is the fact that Sanders did his part. He finished 16 of 25 for 149 yards and a touchdown with no giveaways. Reports and analysts have pointed out that for a second career start in rough conditions, that's solid work. He showed maturity, accuracy, and poise. The problem wasn't the quarterback. The problem was everything around him. And that's where the frustration begins. Fans and analysts have been saying the same thing for weeks. The Browns have the talent, but the execution and game planning keep holding them back. Drives stalled in 49ers territory because the play calling got conservative. Short yardage decisions backfired. The protection broke down at the worst possible moments. And when those errors kept piling up, San Francisco didn't wait. They scored off them. Rumors and discussions online have even suggested that coaching decisions are becoming a larger concern than the roster. It wasn't just a bad day. It looked like a pattern. Because the truth is simple. You can't expect a rookie quarterback to overcome every mistake the team around him makes. And on this Sunday, Cleveland didn't get beaten by a better roster. They got beaten by missed chances, questionable decisions, and an inability to adjust when the game demanded it. The Browns' 26-8 loss to San Francisco wasn't just another bad Sunday. It was a complete meltdown in front of their home crowd against a 49ers team that came in bruised, missing key starters and playing in rough conditions. And yet, they dominated every phase of the game. That's what makes this loss so revealing. It didn't expose Shedeur Sanders. It exposed everything around him. San Francisco didn't need flashy highlights or explosive plays. They simply took advantage of every mistake Cleveland made. The muffed punt that gave the 49ers a short field, the fourth down fumble that turned into 3 points, the stalled drives deep in opponent territory that ended with nothing to show for it. The Browns didn't just lose the scoreboard. They lost the discipline battle, the coaching battle, and the preparation battle. Meanwhile, Sanders quietly put together one of the most efficient stat lines you'll see from a rookie in his second NFL start. He finished 16 of 25 for 149 yards and a touchdown, no giveaways, and solid decision-making in the pocket. Analysts pointed out that he handled the pressure well. He protected the football. He moved the offense. But when the system around you collapses, when protection breaks down, and when the play calling goes conservative, there's only so much a young quarterback can do. That's where frustration is growing. Cleveland actually had chances in this game. Multiple possessions past midfield, opportunities to shift momentum. But instead of leaning into tempo and creativity, the offense slowed to a crawl. The protection struggled. The fourth down decisions backfired. The same problems that have haunted the Browns all season showed up again, and the 49ers didn't hesitate to punish every one of them. So when fans looked at the box score afterward, the shock wasn't the final score. It was the realization that Cleveland didn't get beaten by a better roster. They got eaten by their own mistakes, their own conservative approach, and their inability to adapt when the game demanded adjustment. This wasn't about talent. It was about execution. And the Browns came up empty. What made this game even more fascinating and frustrating was that Shedeur Sanders wasn't the problem. In fact, he was one of the only bright spots on a day where absolutely everything else fell apart. This was just his second career NFL start, and he played with the type of control and composure you rarely see from a rookie. Sanders finished with 16 completions on 25 attempts for 149 yards and a touchdown. And most importantly, he didn't turn the ball over. No reckless throws, no panic decisions, no moments where the game felt too big for him. He protected the ball, moved the offense, and gave Cleveland opportunities to score. That alone should have been enough to keep the Browns competitive. What stood out more than the box score was how Sanders handled the pressure. The 49ers defense came after him aggressively, collapsing the pocket and forcing him to make reads on the fly. Yet he stayed poised. He didn't rush passes or fall apart when the first read wasn't there. He worked through his progressions, took what the defense gave him, and delivered the ball with confidence. For a young quarterback, those subtle moments reveal far more than raw numbers. They show potential. They show maturity. They show that he isn't afraid of the moment. And here's where the conversation shifts. A quarterback can do everything right, protect the ball, sustain drives, avoid big mistakes, and still come up short if the team around him breaks down. Sanders didn't get help from his offensive line. He didn't get creative play calling. That played to his strengths. The Browns didn't use tempo, quick passes, or designs to counter the pressure he faced. Instead, they slowed the game down and forced Sanders into long developing plays behind a struggling line. Even then, he kept his composure and gave Cleveland chances. That's why the narrative surrounding Sanders shouldn't be about whether he's ready. It should be about the fact that he showed promise in a situation where everything else crumbled. He executed his role, he gave the Browns stability at the most important position, and he proved that he deserves to be on the field. What really shifted the trajectory of this game wasn't Shedeur Sanders or the talent on the roster. It was the coaching and play calling that kept putting Cleveland in disadvantageous situations. When an offense is struggling early, the solution should be simple. Adjust the rhythm, change the pace, and keep the defense off balance. Instead, the Browns slowed things down and went right back to the same predictable calls. That choice didn't just stall drives, it set the tone for the rest of the afternoon. One of the biggest frustrations came from the lack of tempo. Sanders has thrived in systems that play fast and keep defenses uncomfortable. At Colorado, when the offense sped up, he was dangerous. He got the ball out quickly, controlled the flow, and prevented the pass rush from pinning their ears back. Against San Francisco, the Browns did the opposite. The offense crawled through long developing plays that demanded perfect protection, and the offensive line simply wasn't holding up. That forced Sanders into obvious passing downs, allowing the 49ers to bring pressure and dictate the pace. Then came the fourth down decisions. Those weren't just questionable, they were turning points. The decision to take the ball out of Sanders' hands during a critical moment and give it to a player who doesn't typically take snaps was the kind of call that leaves fans like that signal a lack of confidence in your quarterback and a lack of awareness of the matchup on the field. Instead of leaning into the one part of the offense that was steady, the coaching staff opted for creativity at the wrong time. The deeper problem is that this wasn't isolated. It felt like a continuation of a larger pattern. Conservative calls on crucial downs, play designs that didn't fit the situation, a reluctance to adapt when the defense started controlling the trenches. Good coaching takes what the defense gives and turns it into momentum. On this day, the Browns didn't adjust. They didn't simplify the game plan. They didn't lean into the strengths that were working. They let the pressure build until it turned into mistakes, and San Francisco capitalized. This wasn't just bad execution. It was a tactical failure that left Sanders fighting an uphill battle every drive. While everyone focuses on the offense and the quarterback, the game truly unraveled because of the little mistakes, the kind that turn a close battle into a beatdown. Special teams became the silent disaster that handed San Francisco free points, field position, and momentum. It started with the muffed punt deep in Cleveland territory. One mistake shouldn't decide a game, but that error didn't just flip possession. It shifted control. Instead of forcing San Francisco to drive the length of the field, Cleveland gave them a short field and an open door. The 49ers didn't hesitate. They punched the ball in, and suddenly the Browns were chasing the game instead of dictating it. Then came the fourth down disaster. Instead of keeping the ball in the hands of the one player who had been steady all afternoon, Cleveland tried to get clever. A tight end took the snap and lost it, gifting the 49ers another short field and more points. These weren't just random mishaps. They were the product of a team that wasn't locked in. They were breakdowns in execution, focus, and preparation. When special teams collapses, it exposes a lack of discipline. A team that executes the fundamentals doesn't give away possessions or allow free touchdowns. It didn't help that the mistakes spread to other phases. Missed blocks, unnecessary penalties, and wasted field position all added up. Every time Cleveland got something going, a small breakdown reset everything. The 49ers didn't beat the Browns with overwhelming talent. They beat them by capitalizing on every opening Cleveland created for them. And the painful truth is that many teams in this league will do the same if you keep handing them opportunities like that. Special teams isn't supposed to be the deciding factor in a game, but when it goes bad, it infects everything else. The defense plays with its back against the wall. The offense feels pressure to make up for mistakes. The entire identity of the team shifts. That happened here. Cleveland didn't just lose to a better prepared opponent. They lost because they kept giving the game away. And those errors don't happen by accident. They happen when the fundamentals aren't sharp and the team lacks the detail and discipline needed to close out games. What makes this loss even more concerning for Cleveland isn't the score or the opponent. It's the fact that it didn't feel like some isolated bad performance that came out of nowhere. It felt familiar, almost predictable. The same issues that have been hanging over this franchise for weeks, and really for seasons, showed up again. Slow starts, conservative play calling, special teams breakdowns, missed chances in opponent territory. These aren't random cracks in the foundation. They're a pattern, and patterns are harder to fix than one bad game. You can talk about weather, injuries, or a strong opponent, but those are just surface level. Explanations. Good teams adjust to chaos. Good teams find ways to correct mistakes before they snowball. The Browns didn't do that. They repeated them. When the offense had chances to score, it stalled. When the defense forced stops, the special teams gave the momentum right back. Each phase of the game reflected the same underlying issue: a lack of execution and a lack of confidence in the system. That's the difference between a playoff-caliber franchise and one that keeps hovering in mediocrity. The great teams don't wait until the offseason to solve problems. They adapt in real time. They build structure around their young quarterback. They find ways to elevate talent. Cleveland has a promising rookie who has shown maturity and flashes of long-term potential. Yet the narrative remains stuck on the same question: when will the rest of the roster and staff match that energy? This is where the season takes a turn. The chatter isn't about how talented the roster is anymore. It's about whether this coaching staff can actually maximize that talent. When every loss looks the same, when the breakdowns follow a familiar script, fans stop blaming the players. They start looking at leadership. They start asking if the system is strong enough to compete or if it's holding the team back. And that's the real concern. It's not about wins and losses in November. It's about whether this franchise is repeating history. Because if the pattern doesn't break soon, it won't just define this game. It will define the entire season. What happens next for the Browns isn't just another press conference or another week of practice. This is the point where a franchise has to decide what direction it's actually going in. You can't walk away from a game like this and pretend the problems are temporary. You can't point to one fumble, one blown snap, or one stalled drive and say that was the difference. It's bigger than that. The question the fan base is asking now isn't whether the Browns have talent. It's whether they have a structure that can support that talent. The first step has already been made clear. Shedeur Sanders is the starter moving forward. That's the right call. He's shown the maturity, control, and decision-making that give a young quarterback a real future in this league. But keeping him on the field isn't enough. The Browns have to adjust the environment around him. That means fixing the protection so he isn't under pressure before plays even develop. It means embracing a game plan that plays to his strengths, quick reads, tempo, and smarter pacing. It means putting him in situations where he can grow instead of forcing him to survive. Then there's the coaching question. Fans aren't asking for perfection, but they are asking for adaptation. They want to see a coaching staff that makes in-game adjustments instead of watching the same mistakes repeat themselves. They want play calling that trusts the quarterback and challenges defenses. They want a team that plays to win, instead of a team that plays to avoid losing. The next few weeks are going to tell the real story of this season. Not because of the standings or the schedule, but because they'll reveal how the Browns respond to adversity. Do they double down on a conservative approach that's led them into this mess? Or do they finally lean into the potential they have? Do they build around their young quarterback? Or do they let the same old habits drag everything down again? Because the truth is simple. The roster isn't the limitation. The opportunity is there. The only question left is whether the Browns are ready to step forward or stay stuck in the same cycle that's held them back for years. The loss to the 49ers didn't just expose where Cleveland struggled on Sunday. It exposed what's been holding this franchise back for far too long. The Browns didn't get outplayed by a superior roster. They didn't get embarrassed because they lacked talent. They lost because the same avoidable problems showed up again. Missed opportunities, turnovers in critical moments, conservative decisions that killed momentum. A game plan that never adjusted when the situation demanded it. And when those issues repeat themselves across multiple games and multiple seasons, you can't call it coincidence. You have to call it what it is, a system problem. That's why the focus shouldn't be on Shedeur Sanders. He gave the Browns every chance to compete. He protected the football, handled pressure, and made the kind of decisions that keep a team in a game. For a rookie quarterback, that's exactly what you want to see. The question isn't whether he can grow into the franchise piece Cleveland has been searching for. The question is whether the organization will finally build the right support around him. Great teams don't rely on one player to fix everything. They find a way to elevate the entire roster. They demand accountability from every phase of the game. They adjust their identity when weaknesses appear. Right now, Cleveland isn't doing that. They are repeating the same mistakes and getting the same results. That's the real story of this loss. Not the scoreboard, not the stats, and not the opponent. It's the realization that this team didn't lose to the 49ers. They lost to their own habits. And if the Browns want to change their future, those habits have to break now. The next few weeks aren't just about salvaging a season. They're about whether Cleveland is finally willing to evolve. Because Sanders has shown he can be the future. The only question left is whether the franchise is ready to stop holding itself back and build something that actually lives up to the talent it already has.